This is the Seahawkers podcast, live and uncatfished. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and I am joined by my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert, on this 28-16 loss by our Seahawks to the stupid San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, another loss to the stupid 49ers, but in anticipation for today, I actually have not been drinking for about a little over a month. I went and bought a 12-pack. It's my first one here. It's time to pound a few after that one because, man, 1-4 in divisional play now. That's rough.
It is rough, and I think we knew it was going to be a little bit rough once we saw that Geno wasn't going to be out there with our Seahawks. And, Drew Lock played relatively well, I think, for the most part. We can get into that a little bit. We also can get into our first super chat from Carly Perkins. Car coming in. I feel very similar this week like I did last. We did better than I expected, and then there's a lot to be hopeful for, but it's still a loss. I wonder if Spoon and Geno would have made all the difference, though.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
I think Geno would have helped for sure. You think about Drew's play in, he had some nice moments. The touchdown to DK, that was a dart. Had a couple other nice throws out on the run and that sort of thing. But also, too, you see him in the third quarter get a ridiculously clean pocket. He has all day, stares down DK and throws into triple coverage, basically. And that's the Drew Lock that many Denver Bronco fans know right there. But with that said, Drew played as a high-level backup, and that's about what you can ask for, all you can ask for. And I was overall pleased with that. I think Geno would have helped. Spoon obviously would have been a bit of a difference maker, but then again, he doesn't play linebacker or safety. So I don't know, man. I'm not entirely sure that they would have been the difference, but 2 out of the last 3 games we played the Niners, we were within 1 score heading into the 4th, and still a no.
Yeah, and I think that one turnover did make a pretty big difference. When I think back to that pass by Drew, it's nice when they show you that camera angle from behind the quarterback. And so when he lets it go, you can kind of see, okay, well, DK has kind of gotten beyond the defenders. And so all he has to do is make sure that instead of throwing it, he just left it a little bit too far inside for the safety to come over and grab it. I think if he throws it a little bit farther and a little bit closer to the sideline, then I think it gives DK a chance. But yeah, we saw another throw where, he threw into multiple defenders too. And maybe that was the one that you're talking about. I was thinking about the one toward the sideline, but
yeah, that one.
Right.
Yeah. I get what he was thinking, but also too, like, dang, man, there's a lot of red flying around in that area when you get rid of that ball, when he had all day to go through some progressions, and he kind of just locked on to DK there. And I get it, with no targets getting into the second half, since the first quarter, I'm sure they wanted to try to make an emphasis to get him the ball more. But honestly, that's not really what the problem was offensively. We've talked about it on the pod ad nauseum, Brandon. I'd love to see a passing chart of this game because I can count 1 pass completion to my memory over the middle of the field. Happened to be a Colby Parkinson touchdown.
Right. And I think there was one Tyler Lockett catch over the middle that probably went for 15 or 16 yards too. And I think it was a pretty long down in distance, if I remember right. So, yeah, it's very few passes over the middle of the field. Part of that was the way that the 49ers defense was playing the middle of the field, and I don't think that they were getting enough. They weren't getting enough out of the run game on first down, partly because they went away from it again. And I think that just allowed those linebackers to play at depth too.
Yeah.
All right, 911 coming in with a $9.99 super chat. Cheers, Adam. This game was not all bad. Lots of ins and outs for sure. I think we're gearing to peak at the right time. See, that's the positivity from Ryan, our live executive producer, that we need.
Well, and I get the positivity too. We're kind of a prisoner of the moment, and we just played the Niners twice in Dallas, and those are 2 really good offenses. I mean, Dallas being the number 1 in the league, and the Niners clicking on all cylinders. and you get smoked, absolutely smoked in the first go against the Niners. Keep it close here in the second game, and then you had a chance to win the Cowboys game. So it's not like they're miles away from being the team that is putting the thumping on people rather than getting thumped. And I think there's some simple things to point out. People are bringing up the safety play. I want to talk about the offense, I guess, a bit more there, because how often did you see one of the Niners receivers on a linebacker or a safety by design? I mean, it happened ad nauseum. How many times did you see a Seahawks receiver covered by anybody other than a corner?
Right. And part of it is you probably still, with Fred Warner as good as he is, that's not necessarily a mismatch. I mean, I even think that he could probably cover DK if they schemed it up to throw against Warner.
I think you're overselling Warner's coverage ability.
Okay.
He's a hell of a linebacker, maybe one of the best in the game.
I might be.
But he's not a corner. He's not a safety. No.
And I think
did you hear their
I would
names?
like to see them at least try. I think you're right.
Yeah. Did you even hear their safeties' names in the game? Like even once? Because I didn't.
Well, there was the one where the safety who had the interception on that throw to DK on the sideline.
Okay, sure.
But you're right.
I mean, he was coming over in support. It's not like Jamal Adams getting dusted by Deebo Samuel or Diggs just standing in space 1,000 times when receivers sit down in the windows around him. I mean, you don't see that same sort of stuff. And that's where this offense is stuck right now, because they actually did a pretty good job of sticking with the run throughout the game. I mean, even down late, they were running the rock a little bit and having some success, and they even did it on first down a good amount. They were real close to 40% in this game, and I think with the way that the game flowed and everything, that's right there where you want to be.
It didn't feel like it as much as it needed to be necessarily, but I know what you're saying in terms of putting pressure on the linebackers, on the safeties, because that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan and the Niners did. And Gambling Goat with a $5 super chat pointing it out. Safety play was abysmal all game again, besides Love on those few plays.
Love was the best of the three, but man, it's time to have the conversation about the safeties, I think, and the actual salary. I know people have been wanting to go down this road for a long time, and we've resisted. Because we want to see, after Jamal came back and played the majority of his season, is working himself back into shape. How does it look? Does Diggs continue on the trajectory that he's been on this year, or does he turn it around? And what we're seeing is that after the really, and give Adams all the credit in the world from just being back on the field after that injury, like that's huge. That's huge. I'm not trying to kill the guy, but it's clear that at least for this season, he can't cover anybody. And it wasn't even that he was slow. It was more when Deebo runs by him, he's just standing there. He's just standing there. He just doesn't react. And I watched Diggs do the same thing about 4 or 5 different times in zone, where the receiver hooks up down in front of him and he just continues to stand there. Brooks does the same thing all the time.
Yeah, there was one play where the runner ran by him, and I think all he did was get his hand on about the nose of the football as Deebo ran past. And yeah, it's stuff like that I think, for one, he's the being out of position to where he then needs to recover. There were multiple times in this game where it seemed like that's what we were getting out of Adams. We've got Brian Wallace in with the $9.99 super chat. Not for nothing. Drew looked composed and not that indifferent from Purdy behind a mostly healthy offensive line, as Gino did last week. If the defense pulls their head out of their asses, we're a playoff team. Go Hawks from Brian. And they're going to have an uphill battle, though, as far as becoming a playoff team, because they're going to have to win at least 3 out of the last 4, maybe 4 out of the last 4. That's going to be with the way the defense is playing. Maybe it's a little bit easier based on the offenses that they're playing, but I don't know if you can play this brand of defense and even beat mediocre teams.
Oh, yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can. Without question, you can. They held the Niners to 28 points in this game. Like, that's not a crap ton of points for the hottest offense in the league. Now, the Cowboys scored at will. Like, you can't beat anybody doing that.
Yeah.
And the defense kept them in the game a little bit in the first matchup as well. So I'm not ready to give up on the defense yet, just because the last 3 games of this 4-game losing streak has been against basically a murderer's row of offenses that you're facing.
That's part of it too. I still think that I still think that with the defense the way it's playing, they're gonna end up losing to an offense that they shouldn't because of the way they're playing, and I think it's gonna happen. Jeremy Green with the $4.99 super chat. I still think it was a miss to get rid of Ryan Neal. I'd take him over Adams right now. Good game though. Go Hawks from Jeremy. Yeah. It's difficult not to agree with that because with Ryan Neal, you're paying what, like an eighth of the salary cost, and you're probably still getting better play.
And I don't know what he's doing down there in Tampa, if he's even still down there. I don't know where Ryan Neal is right now, but at the end of the day, I think it might have been Jeremy in the Discord that it said, we could have gotten this level of play for a sixth of the price with Ryan Neal. And
Right.
I think part of that is, if you're going to keep Adams and Diggs going into this next year, then there's got to be some massive restructuring, like some pay cuts taken, because it just the play is not commensurate with the compensation at all. And it's been that way all year. We were all very excited about the 3 safety look and that big dime, big nickel look, or at least I was. And it is not coming together. These guys just are abysmal in coverage, and Diggs has not been the eraser on the back end either.
And I think I may have just unnecessarily put the banhammer down on James Markey, thinking it was a political comment where he said,
"Oh no,
impeach the president,"
right,
and I think he meant impeach the prez, which yes, that it totally made sense after I connected it. So my apologies to James.
Yeah, pre what would you call that? A little quick on the banning right there in the censorship of free speech.
But we will move along, and I will try and figure out how to unban James. Going back to, let's see, where do we want to go back to? Because I think, man, let's pull up the stats, because
can we start at the end of the first quarter when we were winning? That was fun. I remember that. I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, when it was up 10-7, that felt like it was a very good time at that point, because Drew Lock had connected with DK Metcalf in the end zone, and man, that play and connection with DK, like, one thing that DK has really done well is do that late showing of where he's going to catch the ball, because you see a lot of defenders watching the receiver's eyes, watching their hands, and that's their cue to put a hand up where they can hopefully knock the pass away. And DK, in this instance, I mean, it fit behind the defender, putting his arm up in the air, because DK's eyes had he was watching the ball, but it just slipped right in, and a really good catch by DK.
Yeah, it was an excellent catch and a great throw by Drew. And that was super exciting, just because of the way the Niners scored on their first drive. The big run, 70-odd some yard run by McCaffrey. And then from that point forward, they actually did a pretty good job defensively on McCaffrey, and then got eaten up by Debo. But I guess it's, pick your poison there. But at the end of the day, Drew taking him down the field and tying it up at 7 right there, that was a huge win. I didn't think that he was going to come back and actually get it even right out the gate like that and give you some hope and keep it close. Because it felt like after they scored like that it was just over. It's like, oh, we're going to lose by 40.
My Cool Videos 87. I turned it off after the DK touchdown, so I'm just going to assume we won and sleep happy tonight.
You bet. We are tied with the Broncos at 7-6. That's where we are. Yeah.
There we go. Looking
That's
at
depressing.
Some of the other.
The fact that the Broncos are a game ahead of us now. They are 7-6, and we are 6-7. When you look at the start of this season, if you would have told me that after they had 70 hung on them by the Dolphins, I would have never believed you.
Yeah, I still think that this team finishes ahead of the Broncos. It just is a really unfortunate stretch of schedule. And starting it off with a loss to the Rams, who actually played
Oof.
pretty well against the Ravens, took them into overtime before they got beat. I think part of it was the Ravens really didn't take the Rams seriously, because any team they take seriously, they absolutely destroy. And I think they got caught off guard by the Rams.
Yeah, that feels right. And those two Rams losses, man, those are brutal. Those are absolutely brutal. You had to have that second game. And the fact that they came up short the way that they did there in the fourth is just tough. I mean, this has been a season where it feels like the football gods are just kind of against you. I mean, last weekend we end up losing to the Cowboys, and every team that we need to lose, they all win. And then this week we lose. Minnesota still wins. New Orleans wins. Tampa wins. Yeah, just it's tough. It's tough. It's all stacking up against us. But I think it was either Carly or Amy who had posted in the Discord that if they went 4-0 going forward here, they had like a 90 odd some percent chance to make the playoffs. If they go 3-1, it's basically 50-50. And that's a big jump. But that also lets you know that if they go 3-1, like there's a legit chance, especially if some of these other teams that aren't very good stumble going down the stretch.
Yeah, and then there's the idea of, well, I know that the positivity way of thinking is that, hey, if you go on that kind of run, then you at least have some momentum going into the playoffs. But man, this defense, based on what they've shown against good offenses over the last few weeks. It doesn't leave me room for much positivity. It's a lot more pessimism, I think.
I can definitely see how you feel that way. Although I look at the front seven, especially the defensive line, right? Those guys. And in this game, they played tough in the trenches defensively. And every bit as good as the Eagles, who have, arguably the second best defensive line in the entire league, maybe just to the Niners. And so I think there's reason for optimism there. The Niners, they hardly tested our corners the entire game. They wanted no part of that. Right. I mean, they test Reek like twice, maybe 3 times tops.
And if Spoon is in there, maybe they don't test him as much either, and then you end up getting a lot of what the Niners did in this game. It was a lot of big explosive plays downfield that then set them up for scores. You think about the very first run of the game where McCaffrey takes it all the way down inside the 5. You have that big play. You have the touchdown over the top to Ayuk, right? That was running down the left sideline that got behind the defense.
I think
and
so.
Then
I've got my notes here.
Kittle had one and Debo had one, if I remember right. No, Ayuk didn't have one.
No, Ayuk did not have one, but he did have a drive where.
Yeah,
he did. There was a drive there where it was the Ayuk show there for a minute on all in breaking routes. And it's so frustrating because the corners play with extreme outside leverage so often. And then they're counting on the help from the safeties and the linebackers who can't cover anything. And it's like,
right,
can we at least play them head up and give the corners a fighting chance to fight off some of these in-breaking routes?
And why play with such extreme outside leverage and funnel everything in toward the middle where Purdy tends to have most of his success anyway? So that's they at least did get the one interception that bounced off of Ayuk's hands and into I think it was Julian Love who had that interception. So you can cause turnovers in that way, but I would rather see incompletions rather than see some of these easy completions to guys like Kittle and Ayuk and Debo over the middle.
Oh, 100%. And then, I mean, they gave up a 3rd and 11 at one point. They gave up a couple 3rd and longs. And it's just like, man, I feel like when we end up in 3rd and long, it's a 5% chance of success. And then when an opposing team gets into 3rd and long against us, where you should be salivating, right? It ends up being a completion underneath, and they get enough yak to pick up the first down. It happens over and over and over again.
looking at some of the other statistics from this game, I can't help but look over in the column for the 49ers because offensively, I mean, 368 yards for Purdy, 145 yards for McCaffrey, a big part of that coming on that 72-yard run. So really, after that, I guess 15 for essentially 70. Not too bad. But yeah, the one big one straight out of the gate. 9 targets for Debo, 7 catches, 149 yards. They could not bring down Debo Samuel on the first tackle at any point in the game. Ayuk, 6 catches, 126 yards. And Kittle had just 3 catches, but for 76 yards and the 144-yard touchdown.
Yeah, and he got tattooed late in the game as well on incomplete. I think it was on a third down as well.
Yeah.
But
was that late in the game? The one where Diggs kind of came up and
it was the second half.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the one where Diggs ended up laying the wood there. Debo, I hate playing Debo. I really do,
right.
because he's that big physical receiver, and they use him in ways to where they get him in just a little bit of space so he can use his speed and strength to break tackles and get downfield. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why is everything to DK a shot down the left sideline? Like, why can't we get DK involved in that same sort of way? They kind of do it with JSN, but why not do that with DK, who was one of your best players in the first quarter and looked like he was going to have himself a day, and then you forget about him?
Yeah, they did have one slant that it looked like that they were trying to run, and then the 49ers defender made a pretty good play, and so they never went back to it, which that's the frustrating thing too. It feels like they're so quick to move on from something when it doesn't work the first time.
Yeah, they do seem to kind of go away from it. Now, they did learn their lesson in the run game, because that was something earlier in the season they would do, is they get stuffed on a couple runs and then it was over. Then it was all just bubbles and all that stuff. So at least they learned their lesson there. I can't understand how this coaching staff is so slow to adjust to some of the same problems you see week in, week out. Like, if you throw up your hands as a coaching staff and go, well, that's the way we play, and there's really no answers, so I guess we're just screwed. We'll just live with it. Like, there's got to be something you can do here to exploit the middle of the field, both offensively and defensively.
It's got to be something. Other statistics for the Seahawks: Tyler Lockett having the biggest day on offense, 6 catches, 89 yards. DK just 2 catches on the day, 52 yards, the 131-yard touchdown. Noah Fant, never seems like we use him enough. 2 catches, 35 yards. And Colby with the 1 touchdown over the middle and 28 yards.
Yeah, not enough targets for the tight ends. They're all big-bodied dudes, along with DK, that you'd think that in the middle of the field on seams and things of that nature, that they would be really effective. And we just don't seem to use it at all. I don't understand having a position group that is that deep and to basically ignore them game in, game out with the game plan.
Is it part of it having too much depth at receiver and tight end that it feels like it's hard to spread it around and run the ball?
No, it's not hard.
You have to get first downs to be able to unlock it, remember? And they were 2 for 11 on third down conversions.
Which I was surprised at that number, because it didn't feel like that they were that poor on third down. But maybe it was because on their sustained drives, they just weren't getting to third down very often.
Right.
And
that's what it was.
That was the difference. But if you would have asked me where they were on third downs, I would have guessed around 50%, not 2 for 11. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
I want to address one thing here real quick.
Okay.
One thing here real quick. Come up with a new catchphrase. This sounds so bad. I don't think you should say it out loud before you type it into a thing. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Man, that sounds like a prison movie. Get out of here.
There you go. Glad you addressed it. All right. Yeah. Well, speaking of the bang bang, third down conversions for the Niners, 6 of 11. Also not good enough for the defense.
No, not good enough for the defense. But I mean, they felt helpless for stretches of the game, and gosh, every time the Niners needed that one big play to kind of get them going, they always were able to seem to find it. I thought this was going to be a little different game when we finally got the Purdy mistake. And man, it just they turned over the Niners twice. And what were they? 0-7 when turning the ball over twice. And man, still couldn't get the dub there. All the things outside of normal football play, all the little things that you need to go right, did go right for the Seahawks in this game, really.
Most of them, yeah. Except I think I would have liked to see more on the ground from them. They did get Kenneth Walker involved in the passing game a little bit more than the run game. Man, Charbonnet had some fun runs. The Ken Walker catch and run where he ended up picking up 27 yards when it was the throw over to the right, and then he jukes the entire defense and gets blockers ahead of him. That was an exciting play.
Can we take half of the JSN bubbles and make those passes to K9 in space instead? I think that's probably a touchdown a game.
I think that, K9 in space is better than JSN in space.
By a lot. That's not JSN's game, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think that they don't use JSN enough down the sidelines as much as because I think when we've seen him run a lot more of those sideline routes, they've had some pretty good success. I don't understand why the short throws to him are tend to be where they go with it. And shoot, what you could do is use Ken Walker, line him up as kind of that slot receiver, have Charbonnet in the backfield, and use Walker as kind of that Bijan Robinson type player.
What? That's crazy. Can't do that.
You can't use our players creatively. That's nonsense.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Now, as far as using JSN more outside, I think that takes away from some of the Tyler Lockett stuff outside, and I don't think I'm ready to do that. He is still a highly productive player, and it's not time to move away from Tyler or diminish his role in the offense.
No.
This game was better, Robert. This game was better. The tackling as a whole was pretty good.
It was still not good enough. It was still pretty bad.
Well, shoot,
like saying it was better than the week before.
Dude. And better than the week before that, and better than the week before that. This was better. It was better. What do you expect? What do you expect?
I expect better.
Well, you can't expect perfect. That was a good tackling
perfect.
Game.
I'm not saying perfect. No, there were too many times where, and I think that part of it too is I also count defenders being out of position and not being able to make tackles as poor tackling. And even though those are plays that don't show up in the stats, if a guy is so far, if it's his responsibility in that area and he's so far out of the play because he either allowed himself to get washed out or those types of things, then I count that as bad tackling.
Well, that's not how tackling works, but okay. In terms of the stat, but at the end of the day, I do agree with you in the fact that too many times there are defenders that are grossly out of position and either are late to react to the ball or late to react to the player during the play. And that's kind of what I was talking about with a lot of the little sit routes that the Niners are running in the middle of the field. Just leak somebody out 5 yards, sit in the middle of the field, and then your linebackers and safeties just sit behind them and just wait until Purdy throws the ball. Get down on that, dude. The running back comes out of the backfield, and you see our players, except for Spoon, sit and wait, and then finally fire when the ball finally goes out there. Instead of firing and getting out there and covering the guy when he goes out in a freaking route. That's bad. I don't know if that's bad player execution or bad coaching defensively. I don't know which that is.
It's probably a little bit of both, I think. So, yeah. Either way, I think it could be coached up more because obviously it's a consistent issue. And I don't know. It's frustrating. I'm ready. Every time that I see them not able to tackle routinely, like over the course of a stretch of games, I feel it's on coaching, and it makes me want to fire somebody.
Okay. I get that. I'm not saying that the tackling is fixed and we don't need to worry about it or anything like that. I'm just saying in this game, it was better. Overall, it was better, especially in the first half. They got a little wore down in the second half.
I'll buy it in the first half. Okay, I will give you the first half.
Some of the things people were complaining about in the second were like, they kind of catch dude in the backfield and he makes a nice move and they all rally and it's a no gain and they're like, "Jeez, the tackling sucks. What are we gonna do?" Like it's like
no, I wasn't complaining about those.
It's okay. I know, but some folks do.
Oh sure, yeah. Holy hand grenade, is Brandan starting to be out on Pete? I said that after 2 losses to the Rams this season, I am out on Pete. It's just that nothing's going to change, and so I'm not. It's not like I'm calling for Pete to be fired or anything. It's just, with 2 losses to the Rams, it wouldn't bother me.
Okay, I get it. And look, the fire Pete discussion, it's worthless to have the conversation during the season. It's absolutely worthless. You're beating your head against the wall. But with that said, after this stretch of games, I mean, this is the first time we've ever had to get on this pod and talk about 4 straight losses in a row. Yeah, I'm open to the conversation.
The first time, for the new people, when we say the first time we've ever had to do it, this isn't a new show. We started the show in 2013. We have never talked about 4 straight losses on the show ever.
No, never. This is uncharted territory. But let's see what happens throughout the rest of these games going forward. If they win the majority of them and are highly competitive and it looks like they turn the corner on a couple things, then I definitely think Pete deserves 1 more year. And if it looks just like this, then it's done. We're not on any clock. This is a fairly young team. Like, there's no rush to turn everything over. Do you want to be the Carolina Panthers and going through coaches like underwear? Like, I would rather have sustained success with stable coaching over time. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't walk away from coaches at some point. No doubt about it. But I need to see these final 4 games. We're all reacting and are up in our feelings right now, basically at the tail end of the stretch that we all looked at on that schedule and said, that's going to be rough.
Yeah. But I think it's a conversation to talk about in the off season. I'll talk about that conversation over the trade DK conversation, because I don't know, after he gets cheap shotted in the back by Fred Warner and it goes completely uncovered by the broadcast team, and then it ends up starting a brawl that DK gets thrown out of the game for some reason. I don't think DK needs to be traded after that.
No. Look, there's been a couple of instances with DK this season where I'm like, dude, you got to get your poop in a group here. This was not one of them.
And his poop has been mostly grouped this year.
Yes. Yeah. He got it grouped. And I think it had to do with maybe when he started doing the sign language thing. But at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of people talking about the fight throughout the comments and, the Discord and everything. Couldn't give 2 less of a shit about any of that. Couldn't care less. I don't care. It had 0 effect on the game. Every one of those melees, the right guys don't get thrown out and, things are missed and all that stuff. At the end of the day, it was 2 players got ejected and it was offsetting. Who cares?
And there was 2 minutes left in the game, so it didn't matter much.
Who cares?
Amy and I care about Greg Olsen, because that dude is not even. We should take away his Seahawks legend card. Like, he can't have it.
No, definitely not. And not only that, but I'm starting to wonder, did Pete Carroll come down to the cafeteria every day when Greg Olsen was there and piss in his Cheerios? Like, what does Greg Olsen have?
Greg Olsen hates Pete Carroll.
He does. It's obvious. He does not care for the team. He does not care for Pete Carroll and this announcing crew. And while partially valid, as the Niners are playing very well, all they were doing was crowning him the entire game. It was tough to listen to.
See, Ryan has the right idea. Okay. We would have won if not for the DK penalty. In fact, DK was the reason that JSN got a 15-yard penalty for pushing the guy in the face. Like, he learned that from DK.
Of course. He didn't learn that at Ohio State or anything like that. I don't know what he was thinking. You're a rookie. Shut the bleep up. Wait, once you've done something of note, okay, I haven't seen it yet, though.
Oh, from JSN, you haven't seen enough from him?
No, to be out there sticking your finger in somebody's face mask for about 15 solid seconds, and then, when he reacts and get mad, and then push him harder in the face. What kind of childish BS is that? Grow up.
Yeah, that was weird. That was weird.
Be a baller before you start doing that stuff.
Yeah, and then trade him in the offseason so we can get more draft picks. Obviously.
Right. Yeah. But I do think that it highlights a little bit this game, just how draft picks have gone in the last couple drafts and what we need to do. So really, I think the biggest difference in the game in the second half, short of the defense covering the middle of the field, was the offensive line was overwhelmed in the second half. They lost the physical battle in the second half.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the most part, they held up pretty well, right, to the 49ers defensive line that's really strong. So some credit to that as well. Sam Gelber coming in with a $12 super chat, censored.
You're never censored, Sam. You're never censored. You say all the right things.
Yeah. Maybe that's a shout out to James who
it is.
actually did get censored.
Did you unboot him yet?
I can't figure out how to do it. I can't figure out how to do it live. I'm going to do it right after. You know what James needs to do is you go and you create a burner account and you come back in under a different name, and that's how you get around that.
All right, very good. Very good. Have to call Kevin Durant to get oh, yeah. You're very welcome, Sam. I hope you enjoy it. That was one of our favorites for sure. We got more coming at the end of the week. Man, you guys
and Mitch, that technically wasn't censored. I do believe that Samuel self-censored himself.
Yes. Self-censored thyself. There it is.
Much like Steve Rabel and his use of the word catfish. So.
Yes, very much so.
Frustrating game overall because, man, oh man, I would have liked that win. But 28-16, they fall to the stupid 49ers, but Eagles coming up next week. Maybe now, is it better for the Seahawks if the Eagles win or lose to the Cowboys?
If the Seahawks win or lose to the Cowboys?
Oh, wait, no. Did I say Seahawks? Yeah. Is it better for the Seahawks? Like, what is the outcome that we want to cheer for, Eagles versus Cowboys? Is it better for the Eagles to be coming off of a win or coming off of a loss?
I don't know. I don't care what they've been
You're terrible to have this discussion with. This is a much more fun conversation with somebody who's willing to speculate and see. Clinton's in the chat saying, lose, let them flounder. There we go. That's the kind of answer that I'm looking for. Clinton in the chat saving me.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Clinton. Thanks for saving me because I don't care what they did before they came in. Like, you're coming into Lumen, like, strap it up. Let's go.
Well, it's about 50-50 with the votes so far with the win or loss. So see, this is the type of conversation I'm trying to generate here.
See, I was just tapping into my inner Brandan uncertainty.
There you go. Phil Leidick, brotherly shove. Here we come. Yes, the interior of the defensive line. You're going to have to be ready because anytime it's 3rd and 2, it's really 2nd and 2.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that reminds me of one other conversation. The Pete Carroll, he needed to go for it at midfield, 4th and 2.
I get the logic to not to. I wanted him to go for it there.
Yeah.
I'm not.
The way I understand it, the defense was playing generally well to that point. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I would have preferred for them to go for it. The 2-point conversion try, didn't love it, didn't hate it. Mm-hmm. Didn't love it. I would have rather not chased points at that point in the game. I know that's more the new school style thinking, but I don't quite get it because they're like, well, then you know what you need. Well, also, if you kick the extra point there and you come down the stretch, you also know what you need. So I guess I don't see the advantage.
Well, that point. And that's a weird moment to take it because the thinking is, okay, well, then we're within a field goal to be able to tie it up. But then the thinking should be is that we get the 1 point there, we get it, we're within 4, and then we score a touchdown and we're up 3. And then a field goal can only tie it and not win it.
There you go.
So,
yeah. I don't know. Oh, yeah, there was the fake punt in the game, too, where Greg Olsen just kept saying over and over again, whoa, they lucked out there. They lucked out there. Yeah, it's lucky when they cheat on the play. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, that's the
Because
funny
they're
thing
like,
to me.
I
Is
don't
like,
know what
oh
happened
well,
there. He tripped him.
the guy, yeah, and they were saying, well, the guy fell down. Yeah, he fell down. You can't trip guys by falling on the ground and then tripping them. Like or guys would just fall down in
And then
to
trip
trip
him
guys.
because
Like
it would be
he didn't.
legal. Yeah.
He may not have meant to do it, but it was still a penalty. Like just because you face mask a guy accidentally doesn't make it less of a penalty. It's still an accident and it's still a penalty. It can work out that way.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So yeah, that one was funny. In the second half, every time the Seahawks would hand off the football and it was less than a 10-yard run, no, just no space there for them to run. I just the 5-yard gain, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, there's no space there. It's terrible. I don't know what they're doing."
Yeah, we could make up a whole reel of questionable Greg Olsen calls in this game.
That's true.
It was
I
tough.
think this is a interesting topic of conversation that Robert brings up here. Okay, so you bench Jamal Adams. Who do you put in? Are you putting in Kobe Bryant as the extra safety corner?
Maybe. Oof. Did you see
Kobe?
Jamal? Did you see Kobe get beat very much while he was out there today?
He wasn't out there on defense. He played special teams.
He was out there on defense, dude. He got snaps on defense with Witherspoon out, and you did not see his name called once.
I guess not. Mainly
we'll look at the snap counts tomorrow, but I don't know if he got more than 10 snaps, so it might not have been super significant, but he was out there.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that Kobe Bryant is an upgrade at all in coverage. And then what? He's going to be a better tackler? Maybe. I don't know.
I'm willing to take the chance at this point, dude.
Okay. Look, and I wouldn't be pissed off about it if that's the way that they went either. Like I get the logic. I just don't know who you put out there instead.
And I don't think I could make that same argument for Diggs, though. Like, I think Diggs is still good enough, but there's definitely enough. He's missed enough plays to where it has me concerned about the future with Diggs. With Adams, like, I'm ready to try something different right now.
Yes.
And maybe I'm with Willie Hand Grenade. I like Adams and Diggs. I like Diggs. So, yeah. Maybe I just like Diggs more.
I love Quandre Diggs. I love everything that he stands for and all of that. Father Time runs the fastest 40 of anybody in the world. It even finally caught up to Tom Brady. And it does look like it's catching up to Diggs here a little bit as well. And because he just doesn't seem to have the speed to be the eraser on the back end that we were used to seeing early on when he was here, or when we had Unreal Earl Thomas doing that very thing.
And Mitch, looking at the game based on a couple plays, if you don't count the random outlier of the breakout run in the first minute and the miscommunication on pass protection, we win. I don't know if you could break it down necessarily. I mean, those were two key moments in the game that led to big touchdowns, but I don't know if you could say that the 49ers don't score on the first drive without the long run. But yeah, I do like that outside of a few big plays, the team generally played better than they did on defense against the Cowboys.
That's true. It was slightly better. Yeah, especially, well, I would say against the run, but the Cowboys didn't really run much on us either. I feel like they have the trenches relatively solved. I like who we have up front, especially if they can bring Leo back. He had a big sack in the game. Jay Reed has been a revelation. He had a nice sack. I like where Mafe is going here. Derek Hall, I think, will be better next year. We'll see if Cam Young turns into anything. I think they're doing pretty well up there. I think really where they're going to need some work is up the remainder of the middle of the defense in the second and third level.
Draymond had a sack in this game too. So, yeah, they got some production out of the defensive line. And back-to-back weeks going back to the Cowboys game. So it's not the defensive line that you would point to in these last 2 weeks and say that they're the problem necessarily. Now, some of those big plays happened because they didn't get much of a pass rush on some of those big throws downfield. But yeah, overall, good play by the Lions.
That's true. I've seen this comment a lot that Ryan's bringing up here, and Clinton talks about this a lot, the loss of Nwosu and what that means to the defense. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Nwosu. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a very good player. He definitely helps, all of that stuff. He is not the difference in this defense right now.
No, unless he can move back and play middle linebacker.
Or, anything in the middle of the field.
Sure. All right. But he will be back next year. That is a correct statement. Yeah. And I think so, right? He's under contract. They signed him.
Yeah, they extended him this year.
Once we get into the season, like whose contract ends when, I just, that's until I get to the off season, that's kind of when I focus on that. So if you ask me when a dude's contract's over during the season, it's real hard for me.
No, or their cap hit or anything like that. Yeah, I can't seem to remember none of that either.
Well, thanks to everybody who tuned in and is joining us following the game. And we're going to be back throughout the week. We've got 3 in, 3 out coming up in the week. We also have our flagship show, the Seahawkers podcast. Be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're here and joining us, because then you'll get notified whenever we go live. And man, we got a good group of people joining us here, even with the people that I kicked out accidentally, some intentionally. We did have a good group. So appreciate everyone hopping in. And yes, hit the like, hit the subscribe. And if you want to become a member of the flock, getintheflock.com.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys a ton. It really does help doing these shows after a 4th loss in a row. Bearable, and appreciate that, Mitch. I'd like to think that we could be the best in at least just one universe. I'd take that.
I want all the multiverses, just like I want all of the rest of the games on the schedule by the Seahawks to be W's.
Yeah, and you want every tackle to be made cleanly and behind the line of scrimmage every time for life.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't asking a whole lot.
No. Yeah, you're such a reasonable guy. You're probably easy to be married to.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.